Hey folks, and welcome to this episode of my podcast, Happy Hacks. Today, I've just listened to several podcasts this morning. I had to walk the kids to school, and then I forgot one of their shoes for PE, so then I had to walk all the way back home, and then walk all the way back to drop it off, and then walk to a doctor's appointment, and then walk home. So I had a wonderful, hour and a half just to listen to podcasts. And I got inspired by so many of them, but the one I've just finished listening to, the quote that Carrie mentions in her podcast, it just put into words something that I try to talk about often to people. So I was listening to Carrie Keating's podcast, Work Hard, Mum Hard. That's right, isn't it? I'm pretty sure that's right. Apologies, Carrie, if I've got it wrong. I will put it in the notes. I'll put a link to it. And I think I can't remember the name of the title. Not that it matters, because I'll put it in the notes, something 2.0. And Carrie refers in it to a quote by Tim Ferris, which is, I'm not going to take it off the wall, a person's success in life can usually be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations he or she is willing to have. I just cannot attest to this anymore. This has absolutely been the case for me in my life, and particularly in this last year of extreme self-development and just throwing myself at anything that will help me grow. And yeah, it has all been about being willing to have uncomfortable conversations. And I just want to preface with, is preface the right word? Who cares? Sorry, I do that every single episode, I think. You'll know by now that I'm dyslexic and I make up words and use words in completely the wrong way, so I really shouldn't worry. But for the newbies, they might be thinking, seriously, does she not know the English language? I don't. Anywho, let's just talk a moment about success and how I determine it. Can I bother you with letting you know? I don't know. I think it's an interesting conversation. And I, as I've mentioned, and as you probably know, I listen to so many podcasts, particularly, on this subject of success is what I was going to say. So, things like Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu, Rich Roll and his lovely long form podcast where he really gets the nitty gritty with incredible thought leaders, and many, many more. And obviously Oprah, Super Soul Sundays, the idea of what is success. I'm always like, oh, tell me what you think it is. Do you agree with me? Not agree, but, is your experience of life, has that resulted in a similar perception as I do? Or have you got something else that I've never thought of that might challenge my perception of success? I love talking about this. That's why I think you might be interested. But anywho, I'm going to tell you anyway. Oh, I've said anywho quite a few times. I'll let that go. So success to me is defined by me being at peace. It is directly the result of how at peace I feel as to whether I feel I've been successful. For a long time, it was not that. It was whether I was being successful in my business, which was sometimes tied to money, obviously. But a lot of it was tied to whether I was doing what I love, naturally, as that is what I'm all about. But through this stumbling into discovering inner peace and having such, long periods of time, for me, a long period of time of inner peace uninterrupted is about 3 weeks, where literally I just feel like I'm just walking on air, and I just, there are no concerns. It doesn't matter what bubbles up and what I'm faced with, I remain at ease, and just with the amount of love for mankind, humans, Mother Nature, everything is so overwhelmingly wonderful. It just bubbles over constantly, and it just leaves me walking down the street to pick up my children from school with a ridiculous smile on my face. And that can last for a few weeks, and then maybe the usual bumps in life. I might get a big one, a really big challenge, or I'm stretching myself in some way, like we sort of referred to with this quote, having difficult conversations or what have you, and then maybe I will just fall out of it a little bit, and it'll take me a day or an afternoon to jump back in. And then sometimes, my levels of inner peace are not sort of, off with the birds, just sort of smiling my way around life. Sometimes it's more of just a kind of it's down here somewhere, but it's wonderful. It's just always there since I've discovered it. It is just delicious. So that is how I want to feel, because to me, what everybody wants to feel is happy, right? And I thought happiness was determined by X, Y, and Z. Didn't even know about inner peace at the time. And now I've discovered inner peace. I'm like, oh, that's true happiness. There is nothing else more wonderful than just feeling absolute inner peace. It is incredible. So I just wanted to back up and explain, for me, a person's success. So for me, how would I put that in terms of inner peace? Yes, my ability to be living in a state of inner peace is usually measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations I am willing to have. And that completely is it. So I'm saying all of this, 6 minutes in, and I'm only just thinking to tell you the point of this podcast. And it is just to encourage you. If you are facing something that is making you feel all constricted and tight and scared and, I just don't want to face this conversation. I just don't want to have to put myself out there. I don't want to have to establish my boundaries. I don't want my voice to be heard. I just want to run away. I totally get you. Oh my goodness, that has been my default my entire life. And literally until about the last sort of 12 months of my life, that has been how I've behaved. I will just hide when things are scary. And I will avoid all uncomfortable conversations. I will not have any boundaries, and so on. And I can just tell you, I just want to encourage you, if you're in that space, I have been there, and I know how comforting it is just to stay within your comfort zone of this is familiar. I might not be reaching levels that I could be reaching. I might not be having relationships in a way that I believe it's possible, because the conversation that is involved is just far too terrifying, and therefore completely avoid it and live in a state of, I'm okay with this because I'm not being stretched, because it's familiar. I completely get that. But if you're at a point in your life, and it's fine if you're not at a point in your life, I think everybody's lifetimes are completely different. Some people can get to 90 and never be comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations, and for that person and for their lifetime, that is completely appropriate. But there are those of you who are listening who are like, no, tell me about the bit on the other side of the awful conversation, convince me it's worth it, or something like that. It's worth it. It's so a billion times worth it. And difficult conversations that have been absolutely life-changing for me haven't just been a conversation with another person. They have been those kind. I've had the ones where I've had to establish, I'm actually going to have boundaries now, and this is what they look like. And that's about it. You don't have to go then justifying it, just putting it out there. And every single time I've had that conversation, I have been... Well, actually, no, I was going to say I've been met with complete understanding and it's all fine. No, I have been met with an outburst and, usually an outburst from the other person, followed pretty quickly by complete understanding and literally never needing to go back over the conversation again. And then everything changes. So it is worth it. It will be difficult because you know that you're going to get something. And every time I've done that, I have not expected the outburst. I've gone into it quite naively thinking, I'll just be really brave and just set my boundary. And everybody tells me to do this, so it'll be fine. And then be like, oh, whoa, wasn't expecting that. But then this blanket of understanding has just presented it. Sorry, I ran out of battery, so we're going to have to knit this in. Yes. Then I've been met with this incredible understanding and gratitude from the other person for my bravery, courage, honesty. It's mostly the honesty, so that they're not guessing anymore. And once you're brutally honest with, this is where I'm at, these are my needs, this is my request for your understanding, but this is how it's going to be, because because I'm worthy of setting a boundary for myself, and this is what I'm going to do. It's often, well, in my experience, it has always been met with, like, thank you for spelling it out. And also by being brave and sharing where you're at, even if it involves tears or, I don't know, sometimes I've had to give a bit more than I've wanted to talk about. But because if it's someone that you really, really love and that's really dear to you, it's kind of worth it for them to go, I get it now. And it's just been totally worth it. So that's one example of having difficult conversations. But another key one, which might be less obvious, which has been really transformative for me, like enormously, is being willing to have challenging conversations with myself. Quite often those have been with a coach. Oh, my coach and I giggle sometimes. Well, not giggle, it's more me that's giggling. She's just like, this is all good, this is fine. But so often when I've met with my coach, Jacqueline, I go into a self-coaching situation because I know what she's going to say. She's going to prompt me to bring out of myself what is already there. And I will literally sit there going, so why am I doing that? Okay, Kia, why are you doing that? Oh, because of this. So why am I doing this? And then I'll sometimes spend half an hour, maybe not half an hour, 10 minutes, just talking back and forth with myself until I'm sitting there going, I've got it, we're sorted. She's like, well done. So it's literally being willing to give yourself the space to have really challenging conversations with yourself. Actually ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why do I have this belief? And wait for the answer to come up. The waiting is really important. And so, yes, those conversations have definitely come from doing it on my own, but also giving myself the space to sit opposite an expert with a load of experience who will help guide me through those conversations with myself. So yes, just hearing that quote today on Carrie's podcast made me go, that's good. And that is true. I mean, obviously it's going to be true if someone like Tim Ferris is saying it and people like Tony Robbins are repeating it. We all know there's going to be some real truth in it, but to be able to just share with you, my audience, that this has absolutely works for me. I don't know, there might be some of you facing some tricky situations that will involve a really challenging conversation, who are just thinking, nah, I don't think I can do it. If you're in that boat, that's why I'm showing up today, just to share with you enormous encouragement and love, and just to say, it works, it really works. And I base my business on, and my life in fact, on that now. If I come across a situation I'm facing where I can feel I'm going, no, not from a sense of I don't feel aligned, but from a sense of this is just too challenging, I have to put myself out there. And particularly if I ask myself, well, who will I be if I do this thing? And if the answer to that is, I will be a better version of myself, a greater version of myself, a more brave version of myself. I will step into the picture and the vision I have for my true self, what I really think I'm here for on this planet. Then I know it's definitely not out of alignment. That is only fear that's holding me back. And so whenever I have those moments of thinking I really should do this, but I'm feeling a bit, then I know, well, it's not that I know, I go, I'm definitely doing it then. It's wonderful. It's really empowering to go, oh, there's a thing that I'm scared of, but I'm truly aligned with. Therefore, I have to do it. Otherwise, there is simply no point in being given this wonderful life experience if I'm not going to use it. So I just thought I would share that today. I just, you just feel it in here. I feel like it might help some people. So there you go. Again, like I always say, if I'm saying stuff here that's making you go, that's hitting a chord, or you've got some story related to it, then there will be a post on Instagram for this podcast episode. Please feel free to hop on over and jump in the comments with me and chat about it, because I think this journey is made so much easier by us all just sharing showing up, sharing our experiences and our stories and encouraging one another. And it just gets a little bit easier if we do that. So if you want to hop in there, I will meet you there.